Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Dan, I am spectacular. How are you?
I'm well. It's been a while since we've done this. I feel like we've been on vacation from actually recording for quite a while, and so kind of shaking off the rust a little bit here.
Yeah, we banked a few episodes, and then most of the time you and I have been together has been accomplishing RV related business or working on the studio.
Yeah,
we've definitely
been busy. Just not podcast busy.
I was going to say, or just monkey business, where we're just socializing and going out for sushi and hanging out. We've been doing some of that too.
A little bit of that, not quite as much as the other stuff. So,
right. Yeah. So let's discuss some updates. So, have you made any significant purchases recently?
As a matter of fact, I have. I was talked into purchasing a recreational vehicle. Yes,
you were, and I'm one of my most proud accomplishments of the last couple of years is talking you into that. I was telling Renata about it this morning because I had told her when you and I went to go pick it up, it was a day that I normally have therapy. And so I realized that the day before, and I texted her to say, hey, this Wednesday I am out. Dan and I are going to pick up his RV. And I promised I would send her pictures, which I just got around to doing this morning. And like everyone who I send a picture of your RV to, they were very impressed with how nice it looked and how pretty it looked and how clean it looked.
That's what sold me. That's why I bought it. Yeah.
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 And, I told her my next step in the seduction of your lifestyle will be to make sure you enjoy it so much that you decide to do it full time and you start making some real money renting out your house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, that's not too far off. It's nice enough. So we'll see how that goes part time and, for some long weekends. And, after that, well, I'm definitely, perhaps open to it because I do have a lot of space here that I'm really not using. And I could, make a couple of bucks from renting out the house for sure. So just want to also thank you for all your assistance with, figuring out, what to get, finding the RV that, was a good deal, all the unknowns, that really have prevented me from doing this and taking action. So I did look into purchasing an RV years ago and even renting one. And, I was really surprised at how nice a lot of them are inside, but I was looking at some, that would actually had a motor in there and it was just, prohibitively expensive to even rent to try out.
You were looking at the Class C's, right? Those are the ones that are basically like a truck cab with your primary bed is above the cab.
Yeah.
For those who aren't. And
I'm thinking, well, I'm like, I don't have a truck. I can't tow anything. So of course I'm going to go for something that's got an engine in it, right? Like, why not?
Yeah.
Right. And, then you're like, oh, well, you can just rent a truck. And I'm like, well, why didn't I think of that? So the advantage of having you in my back pocket here, and whispering in my ear, whether it's on the devil side or the angel side of my shoulders here, both, you've had 5 years of experience doing this. And so, that, and knowing, what to do, what not to do. And so, I mean, you've been an invaluable resource and there's no way, again, I would have done this if I didn't, have you, kind of guiding me along the way for this. So just want to officially say, I really appreciate it and thank you. And I'm excited for it. And, it's made this so much easier. And anybody who's like into, who's thinking about getting into the lifestyle, I say, send Charles an email at charles@mindfullymasculine.com and, you can hire him to be, an RV lifestyle coach for you. So he can definitely provide you some great information, off the top of his head. And, he's going to save you a lot of time, headache, and money and aggravation. Holy cow. So, absolutely worth investing in purchasing, seeing if you can negotiate a rate. He hasn't even thought. This is just me rambling at this point, offering up his services that he hasn't even been consulted about. So you're gonna have to work out the hourly rate with him. So maybe he'll give you a package deal. Who knows? If you're a listener.
You know, Dan, as you brought that up, I did start thinking, because I sent you that video this morning from that guy who, basically helps people develop their coaching business. And one of the things he said was, nobody wants a generalist, everybody wants a specialist. And, just thinking about it, with the economy and the housing market where it is right now, that is something I'm going to give some serious thought to, because I have been through the transition of going from a guy who owned a house with a mortgage to, getting rid of the house, getting rid of my possessions, doing my own sort of stumbling through my needs analysis of what I would need for an RV to be able to live comfortably and keep my career on the projection that I wanted it to, and be able to have the social relationships that I wanted to have while still, being on the road full time. And, maybe there is an ebook or a coaching practice or all of the above in that experience. I don't know.
I do. Absolutely there is, because I mean, I'm happy to create a testimonial for you in terms of I wouldn't even have done this because I would have hit the first stumbling block, and having no perspective or experience around it, I just would have been like, this just seems too difficult to do. Oh, wait a minute. I can't. So for example, here, right, finding a campground here in Florida that you can, stay at for more than a month or two has been a little bit of a challenge. Especially, when the winter season's coming up and you need to get on that right away. So it's July. There's no way, or it's August. Oh my God, we're July. Yeah. But I wouldn't have thought I need to worry about like December and January now, and you were like, nope, got to get on this. And, after calling around, being like, holy cow, there aren't a lot of places. And then, we got restrictions. Some of them are 55 and older. And so all these things, I would have been like, holy cow. And I don't know if I would have even looked into that before I got the camper, unfortunately, we started to do that at least. Right. And that was, and again, this is all under your guidance. And so, you could charge a pretty penny. I mean, also, finding an RV that was a great deal and that it was local. So I didn't realize, what kind of if you don't have a truck to tow it, how expensive it's going to be if you have to go all the way across the country to pick up the RV and tow it back, or have a service do that. That's thousands of dollars versus, maybe paying a little bit more or whatever if it's local. So all of these things are problem points that you basically solved for me and saved me real, tangible, calculatable dollars. And so, you should definitely be getting a portion of that. You're not going to be getting that from me. I'm going to give you a couple of free dinners, but well,
I was going to say,
your future clients,
you did buy me a can of, Ultra Strawberry Dream Monster and a new pair of work gloves when we were at Walmart, and and
some barbecue. Don't forget about the barbecue.
Oh, that's true. You did give me some good barbecue from one of my favorite places. Here in on the east coast of Florida, we've got a barbecue chain called Dustin's, and it's like a Sonny's type place, but I like it a little bit better. It's not a Bubbaloo's barbecue. It's not even a Four Rivers, but it's very consistent. And I like their food. And I was a good boy. I ate like 3 plates from the salad bar and 1 small plate of meat because I'm still on my diet and fitness,
your keto journey
regime for the next 100 something days. But, so it's been a pleasure. It's been a blast shopping with you and helping you. I mean, these are the kinds of logistical challenges I really enjoy. It really gets my motor running, trying to find the best solution to a problem. And also, the other thing I really enjoy doing is trying to find that balance of, okay, I've got to accomplish this, and how do I get to the 80 or 90% functional solution and not get caught up spending that extra 10 or 20% to find the perfect solution that I don't really need. And I mean, that's one of the things I enjoy about the line of work that you and I have been in, where it's like, you've always got to constantly be measuring yourself and checking yourself of, okay, am I going down rabbit holes to get the 100% solution when I've already been sitting on the 80% solution for 3 days and it's going to work just fine. Yeah. And,
and that only comes with experience. That only comes with experience, because you don't know whether you need that extra 20%.
Right.
You really, if you've never done it before. Right. And so what is that worth to you? And sometimes to get that last 20%, sometimes could be either really expensive or you have to completely undo what you've already done. I mean, yeah. So that, again, if you're even thinking about the lifestyle, you got some questions, shoot them over to Charles and you'll see he's a pro.
Yeah. And I was just thinking the camper that I ended up getting, I didn't even know it was a potential floor plan until I talked to my buddy AJ, who I used to work with. And, we were in, our fraternal organization together. And I told him what I was looking for in a floor plan. And I told him the two that I was considering. And then he was the one that said, oh, well, have you thought about, Jayco's got something that has those same things. Have you looked at theirs at all? And then, I created a internet search that would send me alerts. And then that's how I found this one. So, it all, helping people out that way, it kind of does, trickle down when, somebody's willing to give you advice. He puts you on a path that leads you to gain the experience that you can then help somebody else out with.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, we've been busy with that. I woke up in the middle of the night to get a little snack because I was hungry and ended up spending an hour on Amazon ordering all the stuff I needed for the camper last night, or this morning, I should say, at between 2 and 3 a.m. So all that stuff's going to be coming this weekend. I'm excited for it.
I had a little bit of that time this morning too, where I woke up and couldn't get back to sleep. So I did some browsing and a little bit of shopping on my phone. And, it's probably the worst thing, both eating in the middle of the night and turning your phone on in the middle of the night are probably two things you shouldn't be doing, but it's very hard to say no to that when you wake up and you feel wide awake. It's like, okay, what do I do now? Okay. So, I'm excited about you getting all your stuff. Did you shop for any string lights yet? Have you found a set of those that you like?
That's one thing I haven't gotten yet, because that's kind of decorative fluff stuff. I was focused on plates and bowls and knives and all that stuff.
Yeah, right? Definitely. You definitely want to go. Yeah, definitely go with unbreakables when it comes to mugs and plates and stuff like that. I either use Corel stuff that you just get at Walmart or Target. Or I use paper plates, because you want to minimize the number of things that can break when you hit a bump. And it's been tough for me because I'm back when I had my house, I was a bit of a mug collector. Like, that was kind of my go-to souvenir when I would go someplace. But ceramic is not what you want in a box that you're towing down the interstate at 70 miles an hour. So I mostly learned to switch to these, Yeti and Ozark Trail insulated steel mugs. And I've mostly given up on my picking up a ceramic mug when I go someplace on a trip. But let me talk to you about that right now. I booked another trip this morning before we got on.
Oh, wow.
I have been watching the Instagram account of the Cincinnati Zoo for about a year, almost exactly a year, because a year ago, they had a brand new baby hippo that was born there. His name is Fritz.
Okay.
And his older sister lives there, and her name is Fiona. Okay. And they do a really good job on their Instagram, sharing posts and stories about Fritz and Fiona and how cute they are and yada, yada, yada. And so, he'd been on my list. The two of those hippos have been on my list to go visit, because, as you know, I love visiting new cities and I love visiting their zoos. And so I decided to pull up Frontier today. Well, first I looked at my Skyscanner app, which is what I use for my cheap flights. And I found a itinerary that goes up on a Saturday around 6 a.m. and comes back home that same Saturday at 6 a.m. for $53. So,
wow.
So for $53, I've got a round trip nonstop flight, and the ticket to the zoo is $24. And that just feels like an amazing way to spend a Saturday to me. Now, obviously, as it gets
which
closer,
which Saturday is going to be?
This is, I want to say the 19th, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not doing anything that day, are we? I didn't have anything on my calendar, so I hope I'm open.
for August, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, no, we don't have anything.
Correct. Perfect. So, I'm just gonna wake up early, go park my car at the airport, fly up, spend my day at the zoo, maybe a little bit of roaming the city of Cincinnati if the weather's nice, and then get back on a plane that night and fly back. So again, I love the Skyscanner app. I always use that to find the deal, and then once I find the deal, I just book it straight through the airline.
Awesome,
and that's what I did.
It's gonna be great.
I'm looking forward to it. The only thing I've yet to decide is, am I going to take public transportation, meaning the bus when I land at the airport, the city bus, or am I going to do like a Turo or try to do a cheap car rental? Mm-hmm. And we'll have to see. The one thing I noticed when I was in Philly, I took the bus, but it was sort of a roundabout way to get me it didn't go straight from the airport to downtown. It kind of went around the perimeter of the city. And I'm pretty sure I was in the kind of neighborhood where the Fresh Prince got in that fight and his mom got scared, so he had to move with his auntie and his uncle in Bel Air. It looked like that kind of neighborhood.
Oh, it didn't go through Bel Air?
It did not go through Bel Air. It was West Philadelphia. No question.
Okay.
Well, maybe I think it was West. I don't know. I'm not great with directions unless I'm looking at a map, but I went through some neighborhoods. I wouldn't say they were sketchy. I mean, they were a little sketchy. Yeah, I'll say it. They were sketchy.
Oh, that's funny.
But so that's the only thing the other thing about my last trip to Philadelphia, I don't know how much we talked about on the podcast, but I don't think we recorded one since then. I did, I love my solo travel. I did a solo trip to Philadelphia. Again, went to the zoo, did a food tour, did a spooky tour, went to the zoo. I mean, just all the stuff I always do when I go to a city. And it was fun. This time I did not find a great option for a hostel, but I did find a cheap option for a hotel by the airport. And, being able to, walk to the bathroom without any clothes on, take a shower, walk back to your suitcase with no clothes on. I love my hostel deals, but being able to have your own room and your own privacy, is often worth a premium. I just don't know. I mean, is it worth the premium in New York City? Usually not for me.
Right.
But the room I got by the Philly airport was $61 a night or something like that at a La Quinta with inside hallways. So it was, a normal business traveler hotel for not much money.
Listen,
so I pulled the trigger on it, and
Mr. Fancy Pants with inside hallways.
Exactly. I indulged myself a little bit, and I got to say it was kind of nice. I didn't have one mean lady and one twin size bunk bed yelling at some guy in another twin size bunk bed and telling him to stop snoring. There was none of that kind of stuff, which, the first night we were at KetoCon, there was a little bit of that in Austin. And so while I was out that following day, I bought earplugs and NyQuil and overdosed on both of them the following night. And I have no idea what happened. I could have been World War III in there, and I was zonked completely out. So I might have been the snorer those following nights. But that first night, I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to live through this again." So I dosed myself to the point where it wasn't my problem.
Yeah, I'm not going to chance my oversensitive sleep with adding complications or potential complications like that. I just can't.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. It's just I get so much out of feeling like I got the cheapest possible bed in an expensive city.
Yeah.
And I've done it enough knowing that 75% of the time it's completely fine. There's no issues whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's just that 25% of the time. And so far, every time there's been a 25% situation, if I take 2 extra strength NyQuils, I don't know if it happens the following night or not. It doesn't matter.
Right.
I sleep through almost everything. So, okay. Couple other updates. I think I'm going to go to that show with you tonight if I'm still invited.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of room. I think it'd be great for you to come.
All right. I'm going to,
Kurt, said, I talked to Kurt about it, and, he was excited when I thought you were going to go. I told him, and he's like, "Oh, cool." So that'd be great.
All right. So I have to, add it to my list today to go to probably like Guitar Center or someplace like that to buy some earplugs that are made for not listening when you don't want to listen to music that's too loud that it'll hurt your ears. I'm going to get some of those. Going to definitely overdose on theanine and possibly the other stuff.
Tyrosine.
Tyrosine. You're going to have that, right?
I will have some
Bring some
tyrosine
along
for you. I will.
Okay. Maybe maybe I'll do one of the really big monsters to get that taurine in me.
Wait, they make them bigger than that can there?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Absolutely.
Really?
They have one they may have one that's at least 1.5 times that size. They may have one
like
that's double.
2 hands. It's like
yeah, exactly. So
damn.
yeah, my goal is to
the caffeine
not be so annoyed by the setting that I ruin it for anybody else. So I want to try to pull that off.
I think if you put together that supplement regimen, I think you're gonna have a great time.
Okay, we should do an episode on those supplements at some point.
Sure.
Where we examine, when people have social anxiety or whatever, which is, it's not really something that I think I probably do have social anxiety, but for pretty much my whole life, I manage it by just not going to places I don't want to be or places that I might not want to be. Which could mean that there are some valuable human interactions that I'm leaving on the table because I instantly judge, that doesn't sound like my kind of place, and I just don't go there. And
right.
So there could be some fun things that I'm missing out on as a result of that. But the other thing is I will be driving myself, so I'll have my own car, I'll have my own keys.
You can leave at any time.
I was going to say, I don't drink, so I don't have to be like, I got to hang out till I sober up. I can't leave right now. That's not a factor.
Yeah.
So, I am setting myself up for success. Maybe I'll like it. Stranger things could happen.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think, as long as you're going in with an open mind and not, saying, oh, definitely not, I think that's the key to success, right?
Yeah, look, I used to not be able to stand going to the beach. That was a real issue for me a few years ago. But, my girlfriend at the time really enjoyed going, and I really enjoyed being around her. So I was like, okay, let's see if I can offset what I don't like with what I do like. And now I can enjoy a beach day. The big factor for me is the water has to be comfortable enough for me to swim in it, because if it's just laying in the sand for multiple hours at a time, I get way too bored. And so I need to be able to sort of break it up. And it's not just the activity, it's the sensations, the laying on a towel, being hot, covered in suntan lotion. I don't like that feeling for long periods of time, but going and swimming in the water for a little while breaks the monotony of that physical feeling. You know what I mean?
I'm the same way. I'm good for about a half hour doing any of that. And then I got to get up, either go to either walk on the beach, walk over to a restaurant, or go in the water, fly kite, whatever it is. Yeah. I just can't, and a little bit more mental than physical for me, but in Florida, it's kind of physical because I'm sweating my balls off. So
yeah, it's bad. Yeah. The idea that there are people who, can sort of take the pleasure of just, I'm going to pop in my AirPods and I'm going to put on the exact right formulation of suntan/sunscreen. And I'm going to lay out for an hour on my stomach. Then I'm going to roll over and lay out on my back, and I'm going to work on my tan and just essentially do what I would consider nothing for 2 hours. Like I just don't have it in me. I'm not wired for it.
Yeah. That's the thing, same thing, when you're into, working out or whatever that is, right? You've got your methods, making your keto chow shakes. Remember you're like freaking out because I wasn't making it exactly the way you make it. You were very precise with it. And normally with most stuff I am.
How dare you, number one? That is a gross mischaracterization.
That's true.
Everybody does not have to make it the way I make it. You just have to have a specific ritual and measured method of going about it that it can be yours, but you just have to repeat it every time that I'm in your presence.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying my way is the only way. I'm just saying you have to have a way.
I have to have a way. Yeah, I don't. It's just like whatever. Like maybe I'll have pudding, and maybe it'll be a little thicker this time because I want to chew on it because I like the peanut butter taste a little bit more. Right?
God, it was killing me, Dan.
Versus like the vanilla. I'll make that into a milkshake because that tastes like a McDonald's vanilla milkshake to me, and I'll make that all smooth. I just kind of I wing it with the protein powder. I always wing it. Yeah.
That was
and it's one of the few things that actually
it was comically difficult for me to watch you do that the other day when
I had no idea. You held it in pretty well. So
I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's doing this. Where I have definitely, and it's not a ritual where it's like, oh no, my mother's going to die if I don't do this exactly. It's not an OCD thing. It's just like I've told you, I'm so particular about the way things taste. And once I settle on a method that leads to a consistently good taste for something that I know is good for me, then it's like, okay, I can't mess with this at all because if I do, I might not like it. And then if I don't like it, I know I'm not going to do it. Yeah. So it's funny. Okay. So we are going to, we're going to go to the show tonight. Are you still thinking you're not going to have the gas, especially if you stayed up all night ordering stuff on Amazon? You going to have the gas to do anything first? No, okay.
I'm not. I also need to go to the gym and lift today. I'm due for that, and so I'm absolutely going to have to take a nap after that. So no way. I'm not going to have the gas for dinner first. So we'll meet at the venue.
Okay, so the show starts at 9, which is that's insane. What are they doing? Why does anything start at 9? That's crazy. I went to see the Barbie movie, and it started at 9 or 9:15. Yeah, and man, I got to tell you, I was dying to stay awake. I mean, not because I loved the movie. I thought the movie was great, and I'm looking forward to when you finally see it, so we can talk about the themes in it a little bit because I think there are some really interesting questions and answers in the movie about themes of masculinity, femininity, patriarchy, feminism. I mean, all really important stuff that I think most people should probably have an opinion on, even if it's not my opinion. I feel like everybody should have an understanding of what those words mean and how they mean different things to different people, and why they're so charged in our society. And I really do believe it's because when one side of the political spectrum in our country uses a word like feminism or patriarchy, they often mean something completely different than what the other side means. And so they just yell past each other whenever those topics come up. And you got to
be able to come together on definitions before you can even have a conversation about things, I think, People have different ideas of what words mean. Yeah, it's a problem.
I've got a book, or at least I used to have a book on the trivium, which is a Latin term for the combination of three things: grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And it got into a lot about how basically those three things are a progression, where first you have to understand grammar, then you have to understand logic, and only then can you engage in useful rhetoric. So if you don't, grammar, a lot of that being the, how do you put ideas, how do you turn them into words? What are the definitions? What's the vocabulary that you have to understand before you can try to logic your way in or out of anything? And then how can you enjoy rhetoric with somebody who you disagree with if you don't have a foundation of logic? If you don't understand how logic works, how can you have a productive disagreement with somebody if you don't understand each other's words and you don't understand how logic works?
Yeah, well, you've just explained why social media is as toxic as it is, right? Because those things are really a lot of time and effort and work to be able to achieve, especially on a large scale basis when you've got lots of people. So both social media and even before social media, you could watch it fall apart on the Sunday morning chat shows, where politicians and journalists would get on there and argue about stuff. And it's like, okay, these people, they're using the same words, but they clearly don't mean the same things.
by these words. And so, yeah, that's, in a great shortcut that I learned in some of the podcasts and books that I've listened to over the last 5 or 6 years. A great shortcut when you're arguing with somebody is steel manning, which is the opposite of straw manning. When you straw man somebody's argument, you make basically a lightweight, false version of their argument that's easier to attack. Whenever basically if you're arguing with somebody and whenever one person says, "Oh, so what you're saying is," get ready for bullshit.
Blah, 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 blah. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that's never what you're saying. That's the worst interpretation of what you're saying because it's the easiest one to break down and attack. So the opposite of that is steel manning, where basically, you and I are having an argument, Dan, and I say, "Okay, Dan, I'm going to try to restate your position in my own words, and don't let me move on until you agree that what I'm saying is exactly what you feel or think." And so when you and I both do that, when we can both put the other person's argument in terms that the original person is willing to sign off on, okay, now we can have a discussion.
Yeah.
And so that's, if you're arguing with somebody about anything that you find to be important or worth persuading somebody, I say always jump to that. Always jump to steel manning. Always jump to saying, "Hey, look, to make sure I understand where you're coming from, I'm going to try to state your position in a way that you'll agree that I understand where you are." Yeah. And if you can both do that for each other, then you can have a good conversation. But if you're just looking to dunk on people and score on them, you're not going to put the time in to do that. And you might get to feel like you scored a victory on somebody. So you can go back to your friends who all believe the same things that you believe, and you can be like, "Man, I really showed that guy." But you're not really moving any kind of a meaningful football down the field.
Right. And the other thing too is not everybody is open to having their mind changed about a topic, right? So something that I haven't really used very often because I don't really bother trying to change people's opinions so much anymore is, you would ask me, "Hey, if I was to present some sort of information or evidence to the contrary of what, you believe, would you be open to changing your mind?" And, I haven't necessarily thrown that line out there as awkwardly as I did just now. And it would be an awkward kind of thing to do. But, my opinion is most people aren't having a conversation because they want to have their mind changed.
Yeah. And look, I
will
even
respect, open to it. Yeah.
I'll respect. There are two kinds of people that I will gladly hand my respect to. And the first one is the one who says, "Okay, if you want to convince me, here's the kind of evidence I would need to see to be convinced."
Mm-hmm.
I respect that guy. I also respect the guy who says, "No, this belief is really part of who I am, and there is no evidence you can give me that's going to get me to change my mind."
Yeah. Yeah. Because it saves you time and energy and effort as well. It's kind of doing you a favor, right? So you're not trying to you're beating your head against a wall.
And listen, whatever somebody says, this topic is something that I am unwilling to, there is no evidence that will get me to change my mind on this topic. They have just told you what their religion is, and that is a valuable insight into who somebody is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, it's not about, what their named religion, whether they're Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, Muslim, whatever. When somebody says, "There's this thing in my life that I put on this pedestal where I don't care to see evidence that could convince me that it's false. I don't want to debate it. I don't even want to go through the exercise of possibly changing my mind on this."
Yep.
That, by the way, I define religion is a religion.
Yeah. 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 Unwavering faith and belief. I mean, that's one of the reasons why a lot of us like Huberman is he actively often says, "Hey, I'm wrong about this," or "I was wrong about that." And he doesn't pretend to have all the answers forever in perpetuity. And, we'll modify things. And, the interesting thing too is, because he's willing to be wrong about it, it kind of keeps you wanting to listen because, oh, wait a minute. Maybe there's more information here that he just discovered that changes something. So I better get the updates, right? Better get the latest. So,
which is, he's had other
scientists on, and I think that from that community, science really is, that's, it's evidence based, and they're willing to, be wrong and change their opinion on things.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons that, during COVID, I hated what became the politicization of the phrase "trust the science," and when people would roll that out, and I always tried to, whenever I heard it, I always tried to correct it to, no, trust the scientific method. Don't trust the science, because the science is a snapshot into what we know as mankind today about a given topic. Where the scientific method, one of the things that I love that Ricky Gervais always says is, if you destroyed every holy book by every religion today and then waited 1,000 years, they would not reappear in their exact current format.
Right.
But if you destroyed all of the science journals that we have today and waited 1,000 years, 1,000 years from now, we would have the exact same science that we have today. Yeah. Because it's the method that determines the truth, not the, let's take a snapshot of where it exists currently today and then set that up as our authority.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing too is there's no monopoly on science, because there are so many variables and factors that need to be taken into account. And that's why they look at meta-analyses, like all of the studies. What do they kind of hint at in what direction? Right. This is, these aren't like laws, like a law of gravity that, the information comes out. These are theories, and there's conditions, and right.
Yeah.
So,
that's why, the further you move away from a very concrete observable experiment, the more you try to infer from that, the more that consensus among the scientific community becomes important, because, as one guy who's not, trained in science, I can confirm that gravity exists.
Yeah.
But as we move away from something that is that easily observable, that's when we need to start getting dozens or hundreds or thousands of scientists together to look at this issue, so that they can all check each other and rake each other over the coals and test each other and all that stuff. So
right. Peer-reviewed studies and questions. I mean, the whole purpose of science is to ask questions. And my issue with the whole, pandemic thing was when people were asking questions, that stuff was silenced, and people were basically humiliated and attacked personally. And it was despicable. And I know it still happens, and it's just for asking questions. And that's been the thing that bothers me the most is, hey, if this is real, you should be able to ask a question. And if you are so convincingly right about this, you should welcome questions. You shouldn't have anything to worry about. It's, you're going to question gravity, okay, yeah, let's question gravity. Okay, look, see, it's still there, right? It's not a problem, just stop. That was the silencing and censoring of asking questions was something that still bothers me.
Are you up to get into that for a second?
Sure.
Okay. So I would say that I don't believe any question should be silenced, but I do believe as a society, we should recognize when a question, the way it's asked and by who it's asked, can have some danger. Okay. If I have, for example, if I have an 8 p.m. cable news show where I get, 20 million viewers a night, and I just asked the question, okay, if I have AIDS, do I really need to wear a condom when I have sex with somebody? I mean, is that really necessary that I do that? Just by asking that question could indirectly lead to somebody getting real sick and having to deal with something because I don't have control over the people who are listening to me ask that question.
Okay.
So even if my motives are pure, it's still possible because of the size of my audience that just by asking that question, that could lead to negative outcomes.
It could. Okay. And then the question is, where do you hold personal responsibility? So, the person who's asking this question, right? What are their credentials? Are they just a figurehead on a news station, right? Or, and what motivations or influences do they have that could be prompting saying a statement like that? These are things that take work and energy. And I understand that, but again, who is saying the information? What kind of credentials do they have? That's right. And that's, and then, yeah, they could influence people, but those people, at some point, where does that fall? I got to ask you that, on the personal responsibility side, because, I mean, if they're going to listen to anybody saying anything, well, I mean, they should be asking a doctor or somebody who's got some credibility and not taking the advice of a talking head.
Well, we agree with that 100%, but we also acknowledge that, you and I rub elbows with people every day in our personal and our professional lives that they're pretty much just waiting for someone in a position of higher authority to tell them what to do and how to live. And we need to acknowledge that, in a country of 350 million people, there are enough people out there that are just sort of TV sets with open antennas waiting to be told what to do so they can do it. And, I would say one of the big problems that you run into in today's extremely fractured partisan media is audience capture, where, if I have a big following and I'm making a lot of money, then I know that the philosophical, political, social beliefs of my audience, they line up pretty close. I mean, if I'm in the business of politics, then most of my audience is going to believe the same things about the same topics. And if I come out with my views or opinions and I deviate too far from what my audience already believes, then I might not be as successful next week as I was this week. So I am financially and from a power standpoint too, I am incentivized to just keep telling my people what my people want to hear. Yeah.
Listen, I mean, it's a business, right? News organizations and these talking heads, it's a business. They're in it for money and to make, and to have followers and everything else like that. And so that's unfortunately that, yeah, you're right. A lot of people operate that way. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean they should be operating that way. And
I would say
I'm not saying, screw them, let them suffer with this wrong information. But, you can't really fix that.
No, I know. I don't believe in silencing. I don't believe in using, the government's monopoly on force to silence anyone for pretty much any reason. And I don't even believe in, these huge corporations that are in bed with various governments around the world, using their monopolies to silence people either.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. I do know that, with COVID, we had a situation that I didn't like because it was non-scientific people on the left just saying, trust the science, trust the silence. And then it was non-scientific people on the right saying, do your own research, do your own research. And it's these people who are clashing with each other where it's like monkeys at the zoo throwing their poop at each other.
And that, right. And it's unfortunate. And I think that just speaks to the failure of our education system in this country in terms of, at some point, some of us, we either were taught the scientific method and a little bit of science, and forgot it or don't work in it. So of course we forget it. And I think the businesses that we are subjecting ourselves to, which is watching, the news and the media, they get, they want us to watch. And so they're going to do and say things that are outrageous and will spur emotional responses and get us to do what they want us to do and watch their programs and watch their ads and consume their products. And I think it's unfortunate that that those businesses operate in such a manipulative manner. There's a lot of issues and there's no easy fix for any of it.
Yeah. I saw an interesting reel on Instagram this week that really sort of defined this problem for me. It's a congressman. I believe he's a Democratic congressman. I don't remember where he's from, but he does these just reels where he talks about what's going on in Washington. And, last week or the week before, the House Oversight Committee had these hearings about UFOs and aliens and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was the House Oversight Committee. I'm pretty sure that's who did it. And this guy was saying he's not on that committee, but, he's in Congress, so he gets to go watch, any hearing that he wants to. And so he goes to watch the hearing, and he said it was really interesting because the House Oversight Committee, as you know, the House is controlled by Republicans right now. And he said the House Oversight Committee is one of the most partisan committees in the House of Representatives right now. It's all pretty much a lot of grandstanding and fundraising disguised as a committee, which, look, both parties are guilty of that. It just happens to be the Republicans right now. But he said the interesting thing in the hearings on aliens and UFOs was the two political parties have not decided what their partisan position on this issue is. So everybody on the committee got to actually work together and ask relevant questions because the issue had not yet been. Yeah, people haven't decided, okay, the Republican position is aliens are real and the Democratic position is aliens don't exist. So now we got to fight it out. That hasn't happened yet on this very new issue. So people could actually focus on asking questions and getting their job done instead of just fighting with each other and making sound bites that they'd be able to fundraise off of.
Wow, that's nuts.
Isn't that, but I mean, when he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that is exactly how it works. It's not the war in Ukraine. It's not COVID. It's not abortion or climate. We haven't decided this party's for, this party's against. So we can actually just have a conversation at this point.
That's nice. It's the way it should be.
I'm sure, but it's a countdown. Eventually Biden or Trump is going to say something controversial about UFOs and aliens, and then the line's going to be drawn in the sand, and then everybody's going to run to their respective sides and decide this is how we feel about this. And in getting back to it, that's what I was saying about COVID, where, regardless of the science, education that we've had, we're in such a polarized political environment. It's like, okay, no, my tribe, my people, we already decided this is the way we feel about this issue. And I want to be accepted by my tribe. I want to be accepted by my people. So now, without actually learning anything new, I just have to say the same things they're saying so that they'll know that I'm a good soldier.
Yeah, no, really. And that's why it's so difficult and that's why we're in this, position that we're in, because we are fighting our own biology. That is, for thousands of years, that's how we had to operate, right? We have to get along with our tribe members, and we have to, we would trust a leader to do the right thing. And the problem is that we can't operate we can't operate in that fashion anymore, because I think part of the reason why we can't do that is because there's no accountability. When somebody does something wrong, when somebody lies, whatever, thousands of years ago, or when we were in tribes, they'd be ostracized from the tribe. They'd maybe even killed or kicked out. Right. And they had their life was on the line. These days, people don't even need to apologize when they get stuff wrong or lie about it, whatever. There's no accountability.
On video. You can get caught on video saying something that is clearly not true and then reverse yourself, and you can watch the two videos back to back, and the person still never acknowledges that happened. It's insane.
Yeah. And because of that, I think we're approaching complete chaos and anarchy, and we're kind of all of our, we're on our own. Right. And I feel like now it's up to each of us individually to, rely on, the information that we were, that we learned from our parents and teachers, from, our mentors in our life, and then also, put the time and energy and the reps into doing our own research and at least a little bit of something, coming up with our own ideas, and not just blanketly, not that you can't listen to what they have to say, but, just take it with a grain of salt, use it as one of your information sources, not your only information source.
Yeah, I would say, again, with the doing your own research thing, it's tough, Dan, because if you're just researching something journalistically, much less something scientific, like almost none of us have the training to do that in a way that we should feel confident in our results. And it's almost, like the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less we know about how to do our own research, the more we feel like we can probably do just fine, and that's,
we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, I would say, one of my favorite things to do is look to people in the public intellectual space, look for new people constantly, and say to myself, okay, who's somebody that I agree with probably less than 50% of the time, but I can acknowledge they're smarter and more informed than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's the name of a person that I would say, okay, we disagree on a lot of important things, but I can tell that from an education standpoint, from a raw intelligence standpoint, from a how much they follow, what's going on in the world, they're more informed and more intelligent than I am. And so I don't just sign off on their positions willy-nilly because, like I said, I disagree with them the majority of the time. But when something new comes up, I at least want to hear what their position is and why they've adopted that position, because there may be something in there that I don't know that I need to know.
Yeah, and a great way to find that are listening to podcasts, right? And because then you're going to you'll get a sense of who they are, how they think, what influences them, what drives them. And just a little little sales pitch for listening to more podcasts for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that valuable, and again, it's just the human need to be accepted. How many things are we going along with and agreeing with on a daily basis because we just feel like, okay,
we're overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed. I think a lot of it comes from just we are so over busy, and we just, there's so many temptations too. It's not always bad busy. It's, you got vacations and you got to plan that stuff, and you got a new RV and you got to buy stuff for it, and you're up at 3 a.m. buying stuff for it or whatever. And now you're not having, you're a little bit worn out the next day. And so our capacity then to learn something new or to dig into something that maybe isn't quite as exciting. Yeah, that's diminished. So,
yeah. One of the and one of the things that this will be the last I'll say about political social stuff is one of the things that's been bothering me recently, and even back in the 90s. You remember when Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, was the one who pushed for the parental advisory stickers to be put on rap albums, that little black. That's all because of her, and whether it's rap albums or Dungeons and Dragons or video games, there's always somebody who's trying to lock down what people are allowed to do, and they say that they're doing it for the children. It's for the children, blah blah blah. And we've now kind of moved where that's the domain of the right in this country, to get certain books out of libraries and schools and stuff like that because of the content. It's for the children. It's for the children. And my little bit of parenting advice, which, again, I have ultimate authority to offer parenting advice because, I have gone my whole life without having children before I was ready to have children. So that gives me ultimate authority and credibility to tell other people how to raise their kids.
Of course.
I'm joking about that, but kind of, not really. Here's the thing. What I notice, when it comes to what books kids have access to, if as a parent, your parenting philosophy is, I am going to teach my kids what to think, and therefore they will have, the happy, healthy kind of life I think they should have because they'll have my thoughts in their head. And I think that's probably the default how most parents raise their kids. If you do that, if your primary goal is, I need to teach my kids what to think, then you are in a very dangerous position of the minute somebody else comes along, a friend, a teacher, a college professor, who is better at teaching people what to think than you were, then your kids are going to toss your ideas out and they're going to adopt these new ideas instead. Where if instead of that, you teach your kids how to think instead of what to think,
right,
and you make them strong thinkers, then you don't have to worry about anybody coming along trying to teach them what to think because they already know how to think.
Right.
And I feel like the people who are most threatened by books, TV shows, movies, sending their kids a dangerous message, it's because they haven't taught their kids, they know they haven't taught their kids how to think. They've only taught their kids what to think. And so as a result, they have to worry about somebody better coming along who can do it better than they did.
Right. And I mean, not even that, but then if they're teaching something opposite to what, you've implanted in the kids in terms of what they're thinking, and now they've presented a more convincing argument on the contrary of what they're thinking, it's very upsetting because it's, you basically have then tied, a lot of that happens. We end up tying that to our identity. This is who I am.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
These are the things that define who I am. And now I don't know who I am because that thing that I thought I was, or that was true for me, is no longer, in my opinion, true for me. And it's like, well, what the hell am I? And then maybe you go to the other extreme of whatever that, whatever those behaviors are, with your identity. You're maybe behaving one way, and then you go to the other extreme because you think, oh, well, this is all wrong now. And maybe that's not the case. You're throwing the baby out the bathwater. So I totally agree with you. Again, and I'm going to come back to part of what I believe in when you teach someone how to think is you ask questions, and you figure out how to ask questions, the questions to ask, and just being open to being wrong, and not having it all figured out. So, totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, I really feel like it, and no matter what the issue is, and I'll take one that is a little polarizing and a little out there. Say I'm a dad, and from a religious standpoint, say I'm a Scientologist. I belong to the Church of Scientology, the same one the celebrities are in. I believe all that stuff. At some point, I should probably have a conversation with my son or daughter that says, hey, in this family, we're Scientologists. I'm a Scientologist because, my mom and dad were Scientologists. That's how I became a Scientologist when I was your age. But now here's the evidence and the facts that I have learned to believe in since I became an adult. Here's why I'm still a Scientologist, because I believe this, and this, and it convinced me that this is still true. I believed it by default. Now I believe it because it makes sense to me and I think it's true. Mm-hmm. And so I have no idea if Scientologists have those kind of conversations with their kids, because I don't know
think anybody
the details of what they're into.
I don't know if anybody has that level of conversations about anything that they've grown up in, right? I feel like, I think they should, but I don't. Yeah, it's a lot of it is,
I would say
the default. It's easier just to say, hey, well, this is just the way it is. And this is just what this is just how I grew up, and this is what I believe. And these are facts. Right. And rather than, oh, here, right. This is why.
Yeah. But look, I completely agree with you that not many people are having those conversations, but I would say if there is something about your family that you value, whether it's your politics, your religion, your family's relationship with money, whatever it is, if you value it enough that you want it to go past your generation, to your kids' generation, to your grandkids' generation, then having those kinds of conversations about whatever that topic is has to be a part of your life. Because if you're not talking about it, then you're just hoping that this boulder with very jagged, uneven edges, you're just hoping on faith that it will continue to roll down the hill, but you don't know for sure that it's going to.
Yeah. That's fair.
All right. So I think we're done with today's episode, where we did not get into our material at all. It was more of a catch up and a commentary. But we'll see what the stats are on this episode, if people love it or hate it.
Yeah. Give us some feedback, people. We'll get into it on the next one, though. So.
Yeah, we're going to the next episode is going to be back to the Atomic Attraction book that we've been talking about forever. And to its credit, it does have a lot of diverse topics to discuss. It's very wide ranging, wide but shallow, I would say. Not shallow in a bad way, but just we don't dive into any one thing too deep. The next chapter that we're going to cover is Maintain Mystery. So we'll be back next week with the info on that. Well, next week for you guys, Dan and I are probably going to just record it right now. So there we are.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you next time, Dan.
All right.
Bye-bye.